Alright guys, so this is the 330 Zoll suction. Right now you guys can see that it is on. We're just going to turn that off real quick. So as far as the setup goes, just things to kind of recognize with the Zoll suctions, there's a carry handle up at the top here. It does say vacuum right where you're going to connect your suction tubing up to. That connects over to your canister just like this, and then connection up on the top here, connected over to your patient. Just make sure all these valves are closed whenever you attach everything up, otherwise you're going to get a leak from here, and we'll talk about that as far as troubleshooting goes. So kind of looking at the front of the vent, or at the front of the suction, just recognize that normally you're going to have this black color for the Zoll 330, which is going to be your kind of main differentiating factor between the 731 and the Zoll suction. They do look very much alike, so just make sure you grab the proper piece of equipment. As far as kind of working from bottom to top here, you have your on switch, green check mark confirms all your settings, rotary knob is going to go ahead and change your numbers, red X is a 30-second alarm silence. And then you could also put it into standby mode over here with this knob as well, or this button as well. So right whenever you turn it on, if you have it in the startup menu setting, it should automatically put you into this setting right here. So it's going to ask you for adult, pediatric, custom, or last settings. Okay. Now this won't always show up. The way that you get that to show up is you have to go over here and hit your menu button, go down to power up settings, and then actually change it from start menu, right? So if yours is just kicking you automatically into adult like it is right now, it's because you weren't in start menu. So to change that, you actually have to go over and click start menu. So every time that it powers up, that's what you're going to be kicking into, is that choice of adult, pediatric, custom, or last settings, right? Now, just like the ventilator, right, for the 731, it's telling me right now that this machine is not actually running, right? We are not applying any suction right now. That's what this green and yellow alternating light is telling you, right? So we actually have to tell the machine to go ahead and do its job, okay? So over here on the right-hand side, we have surgical, pharyngeal, tracheal, and CAS suction levels, right? So there are 4 different levels of suction. Surgical is basically all heck is broken loose and you need to suction them out. Get blood and all that goop out of there wherever you're suctioning from. Then you have pharyngeal, which is going to be suctioning into their mouth. You have tracheal going down into their airway, and then you have CAS, which is more for your RTs in a high-low ET tube kind of a setup. So it's very, very minimal suction at 30 millimeters of mercury. Now the difference between all 4 levels of suction is basically just where they're limited to, right? So CAS is limited out at a top of 40 millimeters of mercury, right? Tracheal, same thing. It's limited to how high you can actually apply that suction to that specific area. So it's almost like a safety measure, right? So each of these have their own different safety measures as far as like how high and how low you can apply suction to a patient. So normally we're going to set up for tracheal or something like that if I was going to go ahead and suction a patient out. So for suctioning a patient out, if I wanted to set this to 120, first I'm going to select the one that I want. So I selected tracheal here, and you can see that it highlights right here. You go ahead and turn it up to 120 like we normally have it set to, and then you're going to confirm it with that green check mark. Okay. Now that lets me know that this is the one that's selected and it's actually running right now, right? So if I pinch this top piece here, I should be able to hear that thing come up to full suction pressure, right? So that lets me know that that particular suction is actually working. Now, if I don't hit the green check mark button, you can see it's highlighting something that I want to change, but eventually it's going to run out of its timer and it's going to unhighlight, and so nothing actually happened, right? So even though I selected it, I didn't confirm it, so that means it didn't work, right? Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, why do I have 4 different levels of suction? Why don't I just have like one primary level of suction? Well, this is because this is primarily a transport suction, right? So every single time that I want to suction something else out, let's say that I'm going from an ET tube to a chest tube, right? I want to quickly be able to, preset what suction level that I want and then switch to that particular suction level. It kind of makes it easier switching between, each individual thing that needs to be suctioned out, or if I had a wound vac that needs suctioned out, I can switch between the two. So it makes it a little bit easier so you can preset all your gear. Down here where SmartFlow and SmartFlow On or SmartFlow Cal. SmartFlow Cal you won't really have to mess with too much. This is for calibrating the machine. If you're looking on how to do that, you can find it inside of the documentation for the particular piece of equipment for the SmartFlow. you can go ahead and turn that and leave that on, because what this does is that it actually eases off the battery life usage as far as suctioning a patient out. This does last for 10 hours, just like the 731, where it charges up in 2 hours to 90%, another 2 hours to 100%, right? So same kind of idea, but we want to leave this smart flow on because it's going to conserve our battery life. Now, there is a continuous and intermittent mode on this suction in particular, so you can switch it over to intermittent, confirm that. Now, here's your on-off time as far as how long it's going to suction for, and then how long it's going to wait to do the next round of suctioning, and then your vacuum level up at the top there in millimeters of mercury. So if you need to do intermittent suctioning, you can, or you can go ahead and just disconnect it whenever you're done doing your suctioning, right? For troubleshooting this particular piece of equipment, so here I'm going to go ahead and confirm again, we're on tracheal suctioning. So let's say for whatever reason, if I hold down on the end of this, it's not giving me complete suction. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? So one could be at the patient, so I always recommend kind of working at the patient first and then kind of working my way back. So you'll look at the actual suction catheter that's being applied to the patient, make sure, you know, if it's a chest tube, all your fenestrations are in there, that the atrium didn't get cracked somehow. If you're talking about the suction catheter at the patient, you want to make sure that the suction where you push down that tab is completely back up or locked. That way you aren't losing suction there. Walking back to the actual canister, you can see here we have this piece which is connected into our suction. Sometimes this will come flying off if somebody trips over it, so that's one place, right? If these are not completely covered, you'll lose suction out of these two areas. And then if it isn't coming from one of these caps, or if this is completely connected, the whole canister itself, or the lid, can easily become cracked. And I've had canisters like this that look like they're still intact, but actually do have a crack in them. So I would replace the whole canister. And an easy way to tell if it's this and not the piece of equipment is pinching up here, right? So if I pinch up here and I'm getting suction, and you've already checked everything out the patient, likelihood is that it's actually the canister that's giving you issues. And that's pretty much it. So really, really easy piece of equipment to use. Not a whole lot of trouble with it. Hope you guys enjoyed this.